everybody. Welcome to Channel 23 and the Faces of Carlsbad. And we must say that we're sponsored by Intrepid Potash. We don't have to say that, but we're going to because we're very proud that they have faith in us. And we're coming to you from the beautiful Carlsbad Foundation building, thanks to Jim Harrison, Jan, and Dorothy and all the wonderful people who make us feel welcome here. And today, I'm very pleased to introduce somebody. As you know, by the way, before I make that statement, we don't know everybody that we introduce here. And today, this lady's a very nice lady, but I don't think I've ever met her, unless I was dreaming, and I dreamed of this lady and this beautiful dog. Well, a beautiful female dog and a very lovely lady. You can't beat that combination. But anyway, Miss Samantha, is that right? Samantha Uhrig, right? Samantha, it's a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet
and
you too.
This is Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson, you're a good-looking dog, a corgi, right?
Yes.
Is that what they call them, corgis?
Mm-hmm.
And where do they come from originally, Samantha?
Oh, that's a good question.
Scotland?
I'm not sure. I think, yeah.
I think it's probably
I
Scotland.
think Scotland. They're actually a herding dog originally, because they're kind of a low-riding dog, so they avoid getting kicked pretty easily. And
Oh, so that's it. Well, this dog could be related to Guy Lutman because Guy is from that part of the world too. Yeah, Scotland and England, Wales and Ireland and Northern Ireland. My gosh. Jackson, do you like to be on TV? I think he does. You're a good looker. Anyway, what we do on this show, Samantha, is to find out, number one, where your ancestors came from and where you were born and what you're doing today, and just fill us in because this is all new to me too. Because have I met you before?
I don't think we've
I don't think we've ever met before.
No. I think I've probably seen you around.
Well, I probably
the
have. I walk
anyway.
everywhere. Yeah. I used to drive a car, but my wife said she doesn't want me driving the car. She won't let me drive her car because she said she's afraid that I'll wreck it.
Uh-oh.
So I do a lot of walking. Anyway, tell us a little bit about the background, back with Grandma and Grandpa.
Well, I have, of course, as many people do, several different types of people in my background. My father's family came from Switzerland, from the French sector of Switzerland.
Oh.
And actually, my father and his siblings were the first generation of people born in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And so my grandfather and great-grandfather came over directly from Switzerland. I don't know much about the grandmother on that side. Of course, they were all gone when I came along, so I didn't really get to meet any of them. My mother's side of the family is a little bit of a mix as well. I do know we have some Choctaw and Cherokee on that side of the family, kind of distantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom and dad both grew up here in Carlsbad, and I was born and raised here in Carlsbad as well.
Oh, you were?
Mm-hmm.
What elementary school did you attend then?
Well, I started out at Pate,
Mm-hmm.
and of course then they expanded and had Southridge, which I think is now Emmett Smith.
Yeah, right.
And so I went there for a year, and then I went to Sunset for 2 years, and then back to Pate.
Yeah. What years were you at Sunset? The reason I ask is...
Third and fourth grade, oh boy, that would have been...
Well, don't say that's not important.
Lots of years ago.
But, yeah,
Marge Briggs was one of my teachers.
Who was?
Marge Briggs.
That was after I had departed. I went on from Sunset to Eddy School.
Oh, okay.
And but I always had nice feelings about Sunset. So I had wonderful Sunset students, and same with Eddy School. I had a lot of wonderful students at Eddy School. So anyway, you you went on from Sunset to the Leyva School.
I went to Alta Vista.
Oh, Alta Vista.
When it was still 6th and 7th grade.
Yeah.
And then to PR Leyva for 8th and 9th, and then to the high school.
Got pretty confusing in those days with all those schools, right?
Oh, I guess so. I mean, it made sense at the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
And what did you say your father, what did he do?
My father was a postman. He worked for the U.S. Postal Service for almost 30 years, and he also was a rancher. And well, he grew up as a farmer. The
Mm-hmm.
family farm was up
Yeah.
in La Herda. And when he and my mother married, they bought a ranch from Judge Floyd out southwest of town. And they've had that place now for about 40 years.
Oh.
They're still out at, well, Mom still lives out at that ranch. Dad passed away 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
But Mom is still out there,
Mhm.
and my nephew is now kind of managing the place, running cows out there. And so she's...
Now, is that north of town, south of town, west of town?
South of town,
South of town.
southwest, out towards Dark Canyon, not
Okay.
in Dark Canyon, but out that
Yeah,
direction.
okay.
Yeah, and that's where I grew up. My sisters were already in their early teens when they had moved out to the ranch,
Mhm.
but I spent my whole childhood out there, and that's probably what got me started in wildlife.
I see. Now, after you graduated from high school, did you get interested in going on to college and then on to other things?
Oh, I knew even before I graduated high school that I was going to go to college. By the time I graduated high school, I had made up my mind to get a bachelor's degree in wildlife biology. And I enjoyed doing research with wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And before I finished my bachelor's degree, I had decided to go to veterinary school. And so I stayed on. I went to Colorado State
Wait a
for my
minute.
bachelor's.
Colorado State University?
Mm-hmm.
My
Up in
daughter
Fort
went to
Collins?
Colorado State University,
Did you?
the School of Veterinary Medicine.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you ever know Ann Scholl?
I think I've heard the name. What year did she graduate?
I knew you were going to ask me that. But as you know, when Mr. Lutman and I were not the youngest people in town, and he remembers everything, and I forget things so easily. So that's why he keeps me on the ball.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'll think of it as we go on with this conversation. And she eventually ended up in Orlando, Florida, where
Oh.
she's practicing medicine now. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, so you went to Colorado State, which has
did.
a terrific reputation for a university.
Yes, it was a very good school. At the time when I was going to get my bachelor's degree, it was one of the top 3 schools in the nation for
That's right.
wildlife biology.
Yeah.
And by the time I was applying for veterinary school, it was also one of the top 3 schools in the nation for that program.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty honored that I was able to stay there and fulfill my education. I stayed on after veterinary school. I did an internship in food animal medicine, which is cows and goats and sheep, basically most livestock. And then I also stayed on to do a master's degree in clinical sciences.
Wow.
So,
Boy. Now, what do you do now exactly? What is your job now?
well, I'm a veterinarian in Carlsbad. I moved back about 7 years ago. Matter of fact, October 1st will be the 7-year anniversary of opening my practice in Carlsbad. I had originally planned to come back and go to work for Dr. Dean Reynolds. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was still in veterinary school.
Yeah.
So without that, I came back and started my own practice, which I didn't realize what a challenge that was going to be.
Yeah.
But it's going well. We're still building and growing and adding on new services and features that we do. My practice is mostly livestock. I do mostly horses and cattle, small ruminants like sheep and goats. I even have a few alpaca and llama clients
Is that right?
occasionally. Yeah, not too many of those around, but we do see a few. The other thing that I have done actually since before I went to college, when I was in junior high school, my mom and I started doing wildlife rehabilitation. And while I was at college, Mom kept that going, and now that I'm back, she's retiring and handing it back to me. And so we still do a lot of wildlife rehabilitation through the veterinary clinic.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a fascinating job, isn't it, taking care of animals?
It is. You just never know what your day's going to be like.
No, that's for sure. Every day is a little different. And you know, I was listening, there were 2 things I wanted to bring up. Number one, I was listening the other day that so many students are now applying for veterinarian practices in these universities, but there aren't that many jobs opening up. It's a crowded field, so they're going to have to be very careful or extremely good at what they're doing And it's not an easy life out there right now for veterinarians who are just graduating.
Right. Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, you come out of veterinary school with a significant amount of debt.
Yeah.
Most students, I think now, it's pushing $100,000 the debt they come out with, and
Yeah.
you know it's hard to find a place where you can make a decent enough salary to pay that debt and have a reasonable quality life. Um, well, it's especially difficult for livestock veterinarians. I think there's some debate about whether there's actually a shortage of veterinarians who work on large animals, or whether there's a shortage of places for those veterinarians to be, because as few of us as there are out in rural areas, it's hard to find enough work to support more than one or two of us in a rural area, because it's very seasonal. Of course, with cattle, you have times of the year when you're shipping and sorting calves and
Oh, gosh,
doing
yes.
those things. You know, horse work's a little more steady, but it depends on the area of the country that you're in and what type of horses are in those areas. If it's a show season or racing season, or if there's more steady horse work.
With the bigger animals, what seems to be one of the more difficult problems that these animals face?
With horses, it's generally things like intestinal upset, so colic, sometimes respiratory disease if they're doing a lot of traveling or they bring new horses in.
I see.
So those are probably the most common issues with horses. With cattle, it varies. In our country, we see a lot of plant toxicity, drought-related issues. Sometimes it's difficult to find a steady source of feed for livestock that's reliable. And so people get creative trying to keep the animals fed, and sometimes that can lead to some digestive issues or toxicity issues, or either a toxicity or a lack of a certain nutrient, and so you have to learn how to supplement to provide the nutrients those animals need.
Wow.
So
So it's much easier taking care of smaller animals, isn't it?
sometimes, yeah.
Although they can create problems too.
Oh, they can. They sure can.
I just had a female cat, gave birth to 4 little ones in my backyard, and I go out and feed them every day out there. But anyway, the mother still does not like me.
Oh,
She hisses, but the 3 babies, oh, they just think I'm the best guy in the world because I bring their food out to them all the time. But you have don't you feel that animals can sense things that human beings sometimes can't sense?
oh, certainly. You know, animals pick up on a lot of subtle cues that we miss, whether it's certain body language or a sound that we just can't hear. It's outside of our hearing range. Sometimes they smell things that we can't smell. Our noses aren't that sensitive. And certainly, you know, there's you hear stories about dogs that are able to detect when a person's going to have a seizure or a heart attack. And, you know, those are pretty amazing senses.
Well, you know, years ago, my wife's mother lived with us, and she was diabetic. And we went out in the hall that evening, my wife did, and saw the cat standing by the door. The cat never stood by the door of her room. And she asked the cat, "What are you doing here?" And the cat wouldn't move. She opened the door to see her, and her mother had collapsed on the floor.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, but that cat sensed that. And then we had later on, and I don't know if you've run into this before, we had a cat who couldn't hear. It was totally deaf. Could see, but that cat could sense that there was something happening in another room, and the other cats were still half asleep, and all of a sudden somebody would knock on the front door. But this cat could sense that there was somebody out there, even though he couldn't hear. You ever run into things like that?
Yeah, it's very odd. You know, I'll see our animals at home. My husband has told me about this. I haven't seen it much myself, a few times, but before our car even pulls in the driveway, if he's sitting in the house, he might see the dogs actually go to the door before I even pull in the driveway. They're sitting there waiting. And I don't know what they detect what they pick up on, but they know that you're coming before you even get there.
Well, how many pets do you have now?
Well, we have 3 dogs right now. Jackson is the smallest of them. We have a Labrador and a Boxer. And then we have 2 cats, one that lives in the house. She's my old lady cat. I've had her now for 17 years.
What's her name?
Prissy.
Prissy?
Yep, I got her when I was in college. And then we have a barn cat, Tina. And her job is to help keep mice and things under control in the barn, keep it out of the storeroom.
Bet
and
she does a
everything.
good job, too.
Most of the time. She'd rather be outside, and she likes to bring in critters rather than take them out.
I didn't know that. That's
so
a
we
new
have
one
to
on
kind
me.
of keep her, you know, in check. But she's a great companion. She actually gets along really well with the dogs.
Yeah.
So
Well, how many children do you have?
I have one son, an 8-year-old boy.
That couldn't be a boy by the name of Jesse, could it?
Yeah, Jesse.
I've met him.
Yeah.
He is quite a young lad.
He is. He has a lot of personality.
Yeah, he kept Guy and me on our toes the other day. I tell you, he's all right. So he's going to, he's in the 3rd grade, 4th grade, did you say?
3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Yep, 3rd grade at Puckett Elementary, and he really enjoys it.
Does he keep you and your husband jumping?
Oh, he does. He keeps us busy. Yeah, and he actually has 2 older brothers. They're my stepsons.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has an older stepsister as well.
Oh, he does, has an older stepsister.
So, but
Well, what's in the future for Samantha?
oh well, right now we're trying to make some plans on expanding the clinic. We are wanting to get more serious about the wildlife rehab portion of it.
Yeah. Would you like me to hold that for a while so you can rest?
Sure.
It doesn't bother me.
But we would like to, we've officially incorporated the wildlife rehab portion of what we do, and we're trying to attain our nonprofit status for that portion, because it's a pro bono service that we provide.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes we get as many as 600 animals in a year. And so sometimes it can take up a significant portion of our time and resources. And so we're hoping to get the nonprofit part of that approved. And then we would like to build a center here in town that's dedicated to wildlife rehab.
Oh, yes.
And, well, animal welfare as well. We get in some animals, horses in particular, that just need extra groceries. You know, people can't afford to take care of them, or they turn them out somewhere, and they just can't fend for themselves, and so they get brought into the clinic. And we work with the livestock board on that and help to get them placed in either a rescue or another home, a temporary home, until they can regain their weight and regain their strength, and then go on to be productive. You know,
Now, is your husband involved in all of this too with you?
He helps out, yeah. As a matter of fact, the first 6 months that we were here, he was my only help. And he now works at the Carlsbad Medical Center.
Oh, he does,
Yeah,
okay.
he works up there full time.
Oh.
But he still helps a lot after hours, you know, in the evenings and on the weekends. He helps with a lot of the projects, building projects. And of course, he's pretty good at helping me catch birds and bottle feed deer and you name it.
Do you run into many snakes, wild rattlesnakes?
We get a few. Not too many snakes, but sometimes animal control will bring them in if they find them in a place where they shouldn't be, or sometimes if they have to confiscate one that's, you know, not being cared for, then they bring it to us.
Yeah. What do you do in your spare time to relax?
Oh, I don't have much of that. I have played piano some. I don't get to do that as much as I used to. I enjoy reading and, believe it or not, quilting and crocheting, although I don't get to do that as much as I used to either. In the winter, it's a little easier to get some of that done.
Yeah.
And then I started taking belly dance lessons, actually. I started doing that here locally with a group of some wonderful ladies, and that's actually something I do get to
What kind of
do every
dancing is
week.
that again?
Belly dancing.
Belly dancing.
Yeah, every week I go take a class
Oh.
with couple of wonderful ladies that have taught me a lot. I've been doing that now for almost 2 years.
Now, are men allowed to be doing that too, or is it just for
You
women?
know, there are some men that belly dance, surprisingly. I didn't know that until recently, but they're very talented, athletic men that can do that.
Yeah, you know Guy Lutman?
I do know Guy.
Yeah, he was good at that.
Oh, was he?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'll have to ask him about
Oh
that.
yeah, absolutely. He was fantastic. He tried to teach me, but some people don't have any talent. I'm one, I just didn't have any talent.
Well,
No, he gave that up after he was telling me to do it to the left and the right, and I accidentally fell off the stage.
oh no.
Yeah, it was a disaster. So, Samantha, tell us where are you located, in case people need to get in touch with you.
Well, we're located on Fiesta Drive. It's at 512 East Fiesta. It was formerly the White's Animal Kingdom, so a little private zoo just down kind of across the street from the National Guard Armory.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I remember that. They had a number of exotic animals in there, didn't they?
They sure did. I saw the zoo very early in its development, and then I was gone when it was active. When we first moved here, they had a few animals left, and so for about a year after we moved in, there was a giraffe and half a dozen camels and an assortment of other things. But they all were, eventually they all moved out. The Whites sold most of them to a zoo in Oklahoma, and so our interesting animals left us for a while.
Well, a number of years ago, you know, before they moved out, I got a call from someplace in New York State saying that I had just won a beautiful giraffe in a contest I entered. And all I had to do was send them $1,000 so they could ship it out here.
That's
and
all.
Yeah, just $1,000. I thought, my gosh. And they said, this giraffe is a beautiful animal. So I didn't know if it was the one that was out there.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's very, now it's on Fiesta Drive.
On Fiesta Drive.
Near the, where the National Guard Armory is located. Well, that's amazing. I have to come out there and look that over. So you're taking care of basically what kind of animals now out there?
Currently we have 4 deer fawn that are all bottle fed at this point.
Oh.
We just got in today a peregrine falcon with a broken wing.
Oh dear.
So I'm hoping that we can get that bird transported up to a surgery center in Espanola so it can be repaired if the damage isn't too severe. We've gotten in several Mississippi kites, and believe it or not, those are small birds of prey that live in town. We see them a lot around the golf course and the big trees, you know, in neighborhoods that have a lot of big trees. And they love to eat bugs, all kinds of bugs. And this time of year, the babies are beginning to fledge, so they're coming out of the nests. And we've probably gotten in nearly a dozen so far this year.
Oh my gosh.
And then we have a young Harris hawk as well. So, and we've had a lot of dove come in, and we're entering.
So you have a lot of birds.
A lot of birds, and we're entering migratory season right now. So we'll begin to see a lot more birds here in the next few months as they're moving south.
Have you noticed in the past seagulls that have come into Carlsbad?
We've seen several different gulls come in.
Yeah.
Mostly ring-billed gulls, but we do get some Franklin gulls and others that come through. We don't get very many gulls that come into the rehab clinic, but a few. We see a lot of waterfowl come through. This fall we'll probably have anywhere from 50 to 200, depending on how heavy our migration is.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
A wide variety of ducks and loons and the occasional heron, all kinds of things.
Well, I want to thank you, Samantha, for being our guest today. My gosh, this was really interesting, and I had no idea that you were involved in wildlife.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's fantastic. And you're located again on Fiesta Drive. What's the address again?
512 East Fiesta.
512 East Fiesta. And if they have any kind of animals that they need to be rehabilitated, you're the one who can do it.
We take all kinds of wildlife, everything from hummingbirds to, we've had coyotes and bobcats and
don't get
foxes
bitten by any of those, okay?
Well, no, we try to take precautions and keep ourselves safe as well.
Well, I want to thank you for being here, and if you see your son Jesse, tell him I said hello, would you?
I sure
Tell
will.
him Bob said hello.
Okay.
On behalf of, oh yes, Jackson, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Say goodbye to our audience. I know it's Channel 23, you told me that. On behalf of all of us here, Channel 23 and Intrepid Potash, goodbye and good luck.